G'day and welcome to week 2 of Kenty Blitz. We will be with you Monday to Thursday to provide your afternoon hit of rugby league news. Kenty, we're about to take to the round 2 action with a baseball bat. But before we do, let's pull out the inflatable because the incident from 3 weeks ago has been brought back up. Morgan Smithies and Hudson Young have been issued with breach notices.
Yeah, I just wonder what the integrity unit really do sometimes. Breach notices, they're both given suspended fines, which they've already accepted. That'll come out later that they've accepted that. But they've accepted the breach notice from the NRL. But seriously, it was two guys having wrestled with an inflatable baseball bat in a hotel lift with nobody else present. This is an administration issue. Boys, don't do it again, move on. For there to be an investigation that's taken 2 weeks to come up with this decision, I just think it's ridiculous. It's just way overstated.
Is there a world where we're missing something here and there was actually something else and that's why they've stepped in?
Well, that's what we thought, because for the integrity unit to get involved, you think, well, there must be some more serious issues here, but there's not. It's as simple as what we know, that one of them was hitting the other with an inflatable baseball bat and it got into a bit of a wrestle. And then hotel security, look, they made the mistake. They thought it was a real baseball bat, so you can understand them appearing. But the appearance then of the hotel security, where the players were temporarily evicted, is why the NRL's now got involved as the integrity unit, and they've come out with this finding. But once it was established that, as Peter Volanti said when he was in Las Vegas, if this is the worst scandal that we come up with in Vegas, I'm happy with it. And it should have just been left to die there, really.
Well, I was going to say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but also today...
It should have stayed in Vegas.
Also today, Richard Gere's facing a $10,000 fine and a 3-game suspension.
Richard Agar, the Warriors assistant coach, he grabbed a journalist by the throat. The journalist, and again, look, John Davidson's the journalist. He put a complaint into the NRL and didn't want to be named. Mate, if you're going to put a complaint into the NRL, to the integrity unit, at least have the conviction to say, you know what, I'll stand by it and I'll front up for it. To put in an anonymous complaint, I'll put the complaint in, I'll bring down the coach, but I'll keep myself out of it. I think that's a pretty ordinary act. So, mate, John Davidson's his name. But on top of that, look, 3 games, suspension, $10,000 fine. It's probably at the top end. You can't be going around grabbing blokes like that. But by the same token, let's just man up a little bit sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't have happened. Whether he deserved that sort of penalty, I don't agree.
Fair enough. We've only got a short amount of time, and it was an epic weekend of rugby league action. I think you only got 4 from 8 in your tips.
Mate, I'll take 4 from 8.
You did preface your tips by saying that round 2 is the hardest to tip because you never know what's going to happen off the back of round 1 and the way teams bounce back.
Yeah, what happens generally after round 1 is we all sit there and think, okay, after the off-season, we see what we saw in round 1, and we think that's the form guy for the following round. But what a lot of teams who get beat for round 1 do is they go away and they troubleshoot their problems. The other thing is, because it's so early in the season, it's so hard to sort of get any sort of consistency about your performance. And teams, I think, recover because they're not used to the daily grind. They wake up a little bit sore after round 1 than they do after round 6, so to speak. So from that point of view, I think there are always surprises. That said, the Penrith Roosters game absolutely rocked me. I cannot believe what I saw in that game. They started $11, Roosters. I don't think I've ever seen a Roosters team start that high, and I don't think I've ever seen a team that far outsiders get up with a victory.
Yeah, I think when Penrith scored the first try, I might have said to my mates that I was sitting with to watch the game, I'll walk home nude if the Roosters can come back and win this. So I actually... I'm in the red there on my bets, but might owe that one later in the year.
Yeah, how are you going to get out of that?
No, it's If you're in the Clovelly area, you might be in for a rude shock. Let's start with, before we go to the Roosters later, let's start with Parramatta, because I don't know, this looks like it could be a club that is spiralling and it's going to go further south pretty quickly. Yeah,
the big problem with Parramatta is obviously that they were pretty awful on the weekend, okay, but their defence is the first thing they need to fix. They are... Well, let's go right. So defensively, they are all over the shop. Okay, they're getting beat at the ruck. opposition teams so far the first 2 weeks are landing elbows and knees, up, quick play the ball. So they've lost the battle at the ruck. That said, the spacing between defenders is wrong. The decision making inside defenders making a decision, the outside guy outside him is not following what he's doing. So they're all over the shop that, and they're actually missing one-on-one tackles.
It's the most points conceded in 20 years in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, and it's shocking. And Parramatta are not a squad. The sad thing about that though, Tom, I don't know who that team was 20 years ago, but this is a Parramatta team that should be offering more. It's not like the Parramatta have got a terrible roster and you can understand the hidings that they're getting. The roster is okay. I don't know where their confidence has gone. Defensively, they've got none. In attack, though, they did nothing to threaten the West Tigers' defence. So they weren't wearing down the West Tigers' defence. Forget about the drop ball. They were both dropping the ball a lot. Neither knew how to sort themselves out of that situation. But they were causing no fatigue to the West Tigers' defence because they were giving them nothing to actually, no challenge defensively. So therefore, they had plenty of energy when they got the ball, the Tigers, and eventually that told. Parramatta are in all sorts of trouble. Dylan Brown, I don't know what's going to happen there. We talked about this last week.
He looked ordinary.
Yeah.
I know it's the sexy thing to say at the moment, but he looked ordinary.
I wonder, he got booed before the game by Parramatta fans. I wonder how much impact that's going to have on him and him going forward.
There might have been some Knights fans in the crowd.
Well, they might be really questioning now what they're doing too. But look, the other part to it though is this was a chance for him to really step up. We know that Mitch Moses is not there. That's 2 weeks in a row now. They've basically been silent in attack. They got.
It's one thing getting flogged by the Storm, but they've just been flogged by the West Tigers.
They've got a rookie essentially at halfback. Okay, so it is up to Dylan Brown to step up and take control of that side. And Parramatta are just not offering anything in the form of any threat to the opposition defence. That's got to be Brown's thing. I wonder whether Brown. Whether Jason Rolls actually moves Brown now to halfback, and I think that might not be a bad thing. Certainly in the back of his mind, he's got already set there that he's got to be making a shift to halfback, given what we've heard out of Newcastle. So if that's going to be the case, does Rolls put the 7 on his back, throw him control the team in absolute terms now, and says it is your side. You need to be the one to lead us out of this, and you have to start taking over the running of the game. He can't sit there and basically be the deputy to Ronald Volkman. It's just you cannot be putting that sort of pressure on Volkman, who's just a rookie essentially. Parramatta got to find a way out. I don't know how they're going to do this. The change that Rolls has brought seems to be too big for them to actually manage. So what they're doing is they're sort of stuck in last year's game plan against what Rolls is trying to teach them this year, and that sort of inconsistency of thought and action brings hesitancy in the way they're defending and attacking, and it's all uncertain.
I saw he said we've got a lot of young players out there. He
not an excuse.
He said that a few times, but I was going to say, how long can he rely on the youth of the players?
It's not an
excuse.
excuse.
This is an elite sport.
The other thing you want out of young kids, though, too, is they bring the energy and enthusiasm, and their defence just lacks energy. So that's not an excuse. They are structural issues at Parramatta. Defensively, as I said, the distancing, the line speed, the actual moving up in the line, that try right at the end of the first half there, which Galvin scored. If you watch the Parramatta line chase the kick, it's a staggered line. Now that's just picking peas now for a fullback like Buller. That's just easy for him. The fact that they couldn't run up in a straight line to defend that kick shows you how out of sorts they really are.
Other side of the coaching coin, in the off-season, and then particularly after their heavy defeat to the Broncos in round 1, people were starting to question Trent Robinson. Well, I bet you if he came on the market, the Eels would be pretty interested. Not to write Jason Rolls off yet, but the fact that Trent Robinson was questioned and then the Roosters turned out that performance on Friday night, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he put a lot of points in the bank with his club on the weekend, Trent Robinson. It was basically a team of kids with a few older, harder, experienced players like Crichton and Tedesco, okay? But it came up with a game plan. Now, look, I don't think that the Roosters' game was their performance wasn't 10 out of 10 as far as their execution. They still dropped a little bit of ball. They still made a few mistakes here and there.
And they've conceded 82 points or 80 plus points in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, but they and 32 of those against Penrith on the weekend. But what they did do, though, is they had a game plan that they thought could win the game, and they executed that, particularly in attack. They scored 38 points against that Penrith team. That's a pretty impressive effort. But what they did was, I think they walk out of that, and next time Trent Robinson sits them down and they're up against it, he says, boys, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to win the game. He's going to have them all on the same page. There might have been a few had a little bit of doubt, knew what they were up against. But he won a lot of kudos with his team on the weekend, and particularly within the Roosters club, the fact that they were able to get that win. I thought it was a magnificent performance from the Roosters. They just really got in and rolled their sleeves up and didn't try and finesse their way to victory. They just worked hard. They made mistakes, but they didn't live with their mistakes. They just got on with the next play. And the Penrith, I've never seen a Penrith side in the past 4 seasons play so poorly. But I put some of that on the Roosters too. The Roosters' energy and attack and what they brought to the game. I think they put themselves in position to capitalise on Penrith being out of sorts.
Teddy said it was the proudest win he's ever had. And obviously, when you're sitting in the press conference after a win like that, the emotions can get the better of you. I mean, this bloke's won 3 grand finals or whatever it is. But it's a big statement off the back of that. And you can tell that there was a lot of emotion pent up for the big moments, particularly when the Roosters scored at the end of the game. You could tell it meant a lot to them.
And the thing is, too, Tom, the Roosters, they know their footy. They know when you sat down and you went through the program, you looked at 1 to 17, how much experience and talent and how much of an edge Penrith actually had over them. And James Tedesco knows that. So to actually recognise that, he wouldn't admit that to his team, but he's certainly smart enough to recognise it. But the fact that he sees that and comes on and puts in a performance like that, and he's the captain of it, I thought he was magnificent the other night.
Thinking about the way that the games went in round 2, now looking forward to round 3, it set up some pretty mouth-watering clashes. Penrith play the Storm on Friday night or Thursday night.
Thursday night.
And I think they're paying $3.30. But you'd have to think that off the back of that win, they're going to bring their best game Thursday night against the Storm in the grand final rematch.
Yeah, look, and you wonder whether Penrith had half a sort of thought towards this game coming up as they ran into the Roosters game. It's probably a little bit too early in the season to have a heavy workload week against the Roosters, which could have freshen them up for the Melbourne game. I don't know if they got too far ahead there. But I think it's the perfect game for Penrith to bounce back with. They go to training now. They know that there's just no quarter to give it against the Melbourne Storm, who are now the premiership favourites, convincingly, overwhelmingly in the markets. And they've got to be on the job. And that's the sort of challenge that Penrith responds to. So that, for me, just makes this... I think this is going to be an absolute cracker.
Dylan Edwards out for 2 weeks at least with a groin injury, and you could tell that they were hurt. Well, they were hurt by him being hurt at the back end of that second half. Yeah,
that happens when you lose such a key player, and his improvement in the last 2 or 3 seasons has been profound. Like he's probably, if not the most improved footballer in the competition, he's among them. So he brings so much to Penrith. He's so dangerous around the ruck for them, and his communication in defence is top notch. So he's going to be missed. But that said, they've got so much talent out there. They can cover it better than most clubs. Massive
news for Manly fans, and I think for rugby league fans in general, is that Travojevic and DCE potentially won't miss any footy. They're going to line up on Sunday against the Raiders for Manly. Yeah. Certainly, I think I was nervous as a impartial fan watching them both go off the field on Friday night.
Yeah, it's never good to see players like that go off. But Cherry Evans, his explanation is he got a cork in the back of his leg, in his calf muscle, so he did. And because it sort of changed the gait of his running to try and counter for the cork in his calf, it just put stress through his lower back. And that brought out the spasms. Makes complete sense. The fear for Tom is he didn't tear the hamstrings, but he felt them tighten, and he got worried about it enough to leave the field. Now, he's almost the opposite of what's happened to Cherry. Obviously, a lot of hamstring problems can come back to tightness in the back, which then pull on the hamstrings, which can tighten the hamstrings. But I said only last week, I think it was, Tom, that Manly's fortunes are tied to Turbo's hamstrings.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Manly this week will run the risk of playing him. I certainly this week it'll all be about massages, loosening the muscles, stretching him out, trying to get him back to peak condition. But there'll be an eye kept on him to see whether if there's any hint that it's not quite right. Because hamstrings, you don't feel like they're about to go. Like he's had the warning sign, but when they go, they just go ping. And if they go ping, as we know with Tom, that can be 6-8 weeks. It could be longer because he's such a big striding player. So I don't know whether Manly will risk it this week. It's got to be, he'll have to, I think, give Anthony Seibold a decision a couple of days before the game, and I don't know if that'll be enough time.
It's hardly surprising there's been some soft tissue injuries because Saturday, I think, was the hottest night on record or hottest March night on record in Sydney for 50 years or something like that.
Yeah. And that's the nature of a lot of the injuries we saw over the weekend was all the soft tissue. They're getting used to the collision again. They're getting used to the impact. It's such a ferocious game that they play these days. The force that gets shown in each tackle is far greater than what it used to be. It's now consistent through the whole 80 minutes of the game. In the old days, you had 10 minutes sorting each other out. Then the game sort of quietened down. There's a lot of, just sort of getting the guy to the ground. But now they hit the whole way through the game. So it's no wonder there is a lot of soft tissue injuries as their bodies are getting used to the stress that they're under with all the running that they're doing, the dehydration, the heat. It all just comes together. But that's why we watch the game, isn't it?
We could be in danger because this new set we've been upgraded to is fair income 50 degrees. So just watch out for your calves and your hammies because it is warm in here and this TV feels like it's radiating heat. Unfortunately, the Doggies weren't quite as lucky as Manly on the weekend because Matt Burton and Kickow have both been ruled out for what looks like 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah,
it looks like both have done medial crucial ligament damage. Certainly, it's been confirmed with Burton. Kickow hasn't come back yet, but it's more than likely that's the same injury. And they are, 4 to 6 weeks. They're probably going to be out. But I'll say this about the Bulldogs. They are getting a squad together. They're starting to find replacements. I don't know who they're going to put in for Burton. I thought he was terrific before he went off on the weekend. Crichton has been mentioned. I think that's a really good option. He moved there for a little while and played 5/8 on the weekend when Burton went off. After that, though, they had a few sort of defensive problems, so that caused Cameron Ciraldo to push him back to the centres to play on that edge to shut down the Titans' attack, which he did effectively. So I don't know what they'll do. There's every chance he does play 5/8 and they just find someone who can slot in this week and play in that centre position and shut down the opposition threats. But it's Canterbury.
Ciraldo seems like a fair income footy coach.
He's a true coach. Yeah. He knows his footy. And he knows. He's like a lot of those guys. A bit like Trent Robinson. Didn't play a lot himself, but knows what he's doing, knows what he sees, and knows, probably most importantly, knows how to fix a problem.
Someone who's going to have to fix some problems, I think probably on the field and off the field, is Flano after the weekend. St George obviously lost in a tight one, but that spray delivered after the game was... I was gobsmacked, and if I'm a player considering going to St George, and St George are definitely going to have to do some recruiting in the next couple of months, I'm seeing that and I'm thinking, fuck, I don't fancy that.
Well, I think the opposite. I think good on him, and I think he's bringing accountability to the team. You know what I mean? I just think, you know what? Look, he was a little bit heavy on Ilias, Lachlan Ilias, the halfback, but I think his criticisms or his concerns, it wasn't criticism, his concerns that he didn't mention but he alluded to were genuine. I do think that, obviously, it's come out since he rang Lachlan Ilias and apologised to him for what he said at the press conference. But the one thing that Shane Flanagan did at Cronulla when he was there from day one, and he's already started at St George Illawarra, is he just brings accountability to the team and the players. And he said he saw some things there today. On Saturday when he watched, he saw some things there on Saturday that he hadn't seen from his team in the off season and in the trial games they played.
He felt good about the team during the trials.
Yeah,
he was
clear
did. About that.
Yeah, he did. And I think the big thing he was talking about there was this lack of effort. I think when they were fatigued. So as he said after the game, you've got to NRL footy. You've got to play fatigued. You've got to stay disciplined under fatigue. And I think he saw a few players drop off, and as a team they dropped off. And that field goal, Jamie Humphries, good on him for standing up the way he did, but the lack of
There was no pressure on him. It was
no,
like, if
no
you're a
pressure,
Dragons fan,
no
you're pulling
urgency,
your hair out.
no urgency from St George Illawarra. It was like they just thought, you know what, kick the field goal, put us out of our misery, and that's what I don't think Shane Flanagan wants in his team.
I just can't see a Serrato or a Robbo delivering that spray.
No, but they're different personalities, aren't they? You know, like Ricky might. Michael Maguire might.
You wouldn't want to be one of my players in the next 10 to 12 days. I saw that and I was shitting myself.
Yeah, but I think good on him. I think well done for coming out and saying it.
Righto. We'll agree to disagree on that one, but I think I ain't going the Dragons. If you need a back rower, I'm 92 kilos, but I'm not interested in the Dragons.
Well, also you are rocking the Ben Ikin look, you know, like the glasses
I
today.
feel like a bit of a nerd today. Let's talk about Kalyn Ponga because he was outstanding for the Knights on the weekend, but there's still a lot of questions about what he's doing with rep footy. There's talk that Stacey Jones might be interested in bringing him into the Kiwi squad, but he's played for Queensland, and Queensland will be very interested in having him back for the Origin series, but he doesn't want to play for the Kangaroos, so what do they do?
Well, look, it's going to be an issue, isn't it? I got the impression, listening to Mal Meninga the other night, that Kalyn Ponga will never play for Australia while Mal Meninga is coach. I know they had their issue last year, where Kalyn pulled out. Mal took great offence to that. And from that, we're led to believe they had their sit down and they sorted it all out. But for this to now emerge before the rep season is underway, so early in the season, says to me that I think Mal's disgust at the actual comments shows me that he'll never play for Australia, particularly when there's already enough. As good as Kalyn Ponga is, and he must be very short odds already to win the Dally medal this year.
I think he's the only player to take 6 points in both games.
He is. He leads them, and I think clearly we're seeing more out of him. We're seeing he's a busier player than what he has been in past seasons. And if he can maintain that, he will win the Dally by the length of the straight and be the best player in the game, alongside Nathan Cleary, who I think is going to be tough to shift there. But the thing is about it, it's an issue when you want to play for New Zealand, but you also want to play for Queensland. Now he can switch allegiances. He's played for the Origin, which is Tier 1 sport, and he's played for the Australian Nines team, which qualifies him as an Australian player. He's not allowed to play for New Zealand. He can play for New Zealand if he has I think it's a 2-year stand down from rep football. I don't know if that still applies in the NRL, but internationally that was generally how you had to switch allegiances. But that said, rugby league, we make up rules on the way. Yeah, whatever feels good at the time, that's what we'll do. So if it's a feel good story for him to come out and play for the Kiwis, they'll let him play for the Kiwis. But it's concerning. I don't like how I get him wanting to represent his heritage. Okay, but if you want to represent your heritage from the start. It's not a swap and go type thing. I understand Mal's annoyance at it. I get the fact that he wants to play Origin, but and I don't like the fact that you play Origin and after you've played for a few years, you think, okay, now I might go and play where I really want to play Test football, which is with the Kiwis. I just think you've got to make your decision. They do ask them to make the decision now when they sign their first NRL contract, but this swapping and changing it's just not good. And I think Kalyn's just better off just saying nothing, to be honest. Yeah, the fact that the Kiwis are exploring it, I get why they are. He's such a talented player, but it's not a good look.
That combo of him, Clogger, and Sharp at the Knights, it got better this week, and it looked all right last week. They must be looking at Dylan Brown at Parramatta and going, shit, what's going on here?
Well, they're probably playing for their contracts too, aren't they? Yeah. Those guys, you've got to figure out, like, 3 doesn't go into 2. So everybody's trying to keep their job, and I think well done to the Knights boys for doing it. Like they're playing high energy. They're playing like they want to do something.
Kalyn Ponga was outstanding. Reece Walsh in the Broncos upset to the Raiders was horrific. I think I had him in my Supercoach team. He was my first pick, and I think he got 9 points. So
yeah, he's out of sorts, isn't he? But look, that's the dilemma of what we just spoke about. If you're picking the Origin team right now, you're going for Kalyn Ponga head and shoulders above Reece Walsh. There's no way in the world Reece Walsh gets in the Origin team in front of him. But if he wants to play for New Zealand, then that needs to be sorted. I'll say this though: those Queenslanders, we know what they're like. They don't care. They'll happily pick a Kiwi and call him a Queenslander.
That's in Queensland, one of the great spoof videos of all time.
Yeah.
Greg Inglis, where's he from? Bowraville, fair dinkum.
Yeah. I was talking to Iken once about that, and when he drove home after COVID, he said to me, he said, I was actually surprised. He's now the CEO of the Queensland Rugby League. He said, I was actually surprised how far down in New South Wales Barraville actually is, because there's this myth in Queensland.
I think it's south of Coffs Harbour. Correct me if I'm wrong, and someone will in the YouTube comments, but I'm pretty sure it's south of Coffs Harbour.
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot of hours left to go from Barraville to the border, I can tell you now.
Far out. Plenty of Origin to talk about in a couple of weeks, and of course, if you want to get in the YouTube comments, jump in. No doubt we've got things wrong, things you disagree with, but jump in. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera. It's been outstanding to see the engagement the last couple of weeks. We'll be back with some more Ask Kenty tomorrow. But if you are liking what you're hearing and if you disagree, jump in there, because it spurs some good conversation between the two of us. We can't go past round 2 without mentioning your favourites, the Spectators with flags. What did you call them last week? The eyeless Spectators, I think it was last week.
But you know what, though? They did it again. I'll tell you what I'd like to see. In soccer, we see the linesmen adjudicate on offside, because they are in the perfect position on the sideline to look across the field and be able to draw an imaginary straight line. We saw Dylan Brown throw a forward pass where he actually threw the ball forward like that. And Parramatta scored the try, and I think it was a bit dodgy when they called it back. I think they realised it was such a forward pass. If we call it back, we can't rule on a forward pass, but we can say there's an obstruction here.
I didn't realise. I was watching on mute, and I thought, oh, thank God. Sanity's prevailed. Yeah. They've pulled it back for the forward pass. No, only when I was reading this morning that it was an obstruction.
Yeah, but so he did one that was clearly, and let's remember, Parramatta, they are on the fight back. Right, they're trying to get going again. And then we saw one in the Penrith Roosters game, Nwanga Tunuasi.
Done
right?
it.
Nailed it.
Kenty said before that he was getting nervous first when he had to set, and he's just smashed it.
But when he's forward pass, okay. Now, in that instance, the Lions woman, Belinda Sharp, she wasn't actually in line with the pass. She should have been. That was her job to get there, okay. I get the referees, given the angles that they're on, can sometimes miss a forward pass, particularly a question one. I know that we have this momentum when you throw a pass, it can travel forward even though technically the pass has been thrown backwards. But for them to miss these forward passes the way they are, and let's go back to the Penrith Roosters game, it was a 6-point difference in the end. And there was a try for the Roosters off a forward pass. So it could have had, come the minor premiership, come the top 2 later this season, where both... Penrith, Melbourne, Broncos, whoever are going to be fighting for that top 2 spot. That loss could have had might have some ramification on that table. The linesmen should be sitting there and at least trying to contribute to the performance. Help the referee out, make a call. They did at one point. I don't know if they still have them mic'd up that they could speak into the flag to the referee. They should be able to do that. They should. The linesmen are the perfect people to adjudicate on forward passes and not. They should be able to help the referee. At the moment, they are just dead set watching the game, just need their popcorn. That's all they do.
Without that, and I know everyone says it, but I don't know why we don't just use the video ref for forward passes. Sure, if you can't do it by the video, just you go to the on-field ref or the linesman.
I get it, right? The reason is this, right? And this is the whole argument with any sort of video replay we use. We all say we'll get rid of the clanger, which it does. The drop ball over the try line, the forward pass that Dylan Brown threw on the weekend where it was clearly forward. But what we'll then do is we'll keep bringing in the parameters until we get to a pass that some will say, I think it went forward, some will say it won't. And because
but then you go with the on-field decision.
Yeah, well, and we're happy doing that, aren't we? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But that said, I think the technology is now good enough. And certainly back in the day when they first said they were not going to use camera replays, or they couldn't, it's because there's basically 5 cameras at the ground. But now I think they've got 11 to 12 cameras at the ground these days. There's far more cameras there, and generally one will pick up. And I think we do know enough now that we can do that.
The DRS is overused in cricket, but I think the fact that benefit it out still goes to the batsman, like foundational rule of the game. Benefit it out goes to probably the defensive team. I don't know why that doesn't happen. If the video ref is inconclusive,
the benefit of attacking rugby league goes to the attacking team.
But for these particular ones, maybe that's how you bring the video in.
Well, you can do that. I don't have the answers there, but I think that the Lions people should actually be able to help out the referee. There's got to be a reason they're there other than put their flag up on kicks into touch.
Mate, we're going to be back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We've scratched the surface on what was an epic weekend of rugby league. This time last week, the Dylan Brown news broke about an hour later, so I don't know what we'll be talking about tomorrow.
We'll wait and see.
But, yeah, that round set up a pretty awesome season, and keen to jump into more of it tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Good stuff. Cheers, everyone.